Hey guys, so today on the Tea Time Show I just want to share a few tips about optimizing Google Shopping accounts to get many more sales for the clicks and increase your return on investment. Let's just dive in. So let's start in the Merchant Center. So in here, this is a reasonably recent update actually. You obviously have your data feed connected and your data is being pulled into the Google Merchant Center, and then within the Merchant Center we can create some rules which mean later we can do things in the Google AdWords account to optimize based on different criteria. So why would we want to do that? Well, if we can segment our product groups into smaller segments, so usually you would be looking at your Google categories, for example, and then sub-segmenting category, subcategory, subcategory, and then optimizing the products within those, increasing, decreasing bids, depending on what sells and what doesn't, maybe segmenting those into their own ad groups, adding negative keywords, that kind of stuff. If you're not sure about those things, by the way, we do some coaching, but today we're just focusing on some rules in the Google Merchant Center. So what we can do, there are in Google AdWords, within shopping, and within the Merchant Center, you can have custom label 0, custom label 1, custom label 2, custom label 3, and custom label 4. So what can we use those for? Anything you like, basically. So if you're not outputting some data in those custom label tags, then you can create some rules to put some data in there to then segment. So here's an example. So this is just an example of some cables. And in the Merchant Center, in the Google taxonomy, there's a category for HDMI cables. Well, that's great. But what if you've got a HDMI cable that is, I don't know, a small HDMI cable, a mini HDMI cable? That's a HDMI cable in Google's category. What if it's HDMI to DVI? That's a HDMI cable. So in our normal structure, we've got all of our cables, all of our HDMI to something cables, all lumped in together. But we don't really want them together. We want search terms to match HDMI to DVI to match HDMI to DVI cables. Now, you would think that happens automatically, and quite often it does, but not always. So if you don't segment, it's quite possible, quite likely, and it often happens, that a search for a generic HDMI cable will match a product and show a product ad for HDMI to DVI. That's not going to convert. It's not going to attract a click. If it does attract a click, you're probably just going to waste that money. So we really want to segment and filter and push our HDMI DVI traffic to HDMI DVI cables and the standard HDMI stuff away from the DVI cables, and so on and so on. So what we can do here is we can just go and create a label, custom label 2, and create a rule. So I've got one here. So create a value based on criteria in the feed field, and then I can pick, as I've got here, I've picked the title. So if the title contains HDMI and it contains DVI, then set the value for custom label 2 to HDMI to DVI. Equally, I could say, I don't know, let's say you've got some products that are quite large. You could say if the size is greater than a certain volume, and then you could segment by that. I don't know, what else have we got in here? If you've got different manufacturers of products that you sell through your e-commerce store, then you may want to say, okay, I've got Sony, I've got Samsung, I've got LG, I've got all these different manufacturers, and I may want to segment by manufacturer. I may want to do something with a manufacturer label where I build a rule that says, right, okay, custom label 1 or 2 is something else. So we can do a whole heap of things in here. Okay, expiry date, those sorts of things, I could do that. Condition, maybe you got some used stuff and some new. You could segment by that, you could create a rule, so on and so on, maybe different colors, those sorts of things, okay? So let's just cancel that. So what does that do? So if we now look in the Google AdWords side of things, when we're now looking, okay, so here's another section. We've got electronics accessories. This is segmenting by Google category, Google category, Google category, and then everything in iOS cables. So if I go into data transfer cables, we're segmenting by product type, and we've got all the iOS cables in there. Okay. But equally, if we have a rule in custom label 2, we could then say, well, actually in custom label 2, we've now got large items, medium items, small items, or we've got used items or new items. We could sub-segment that, and then we could have different bids. We could have them in different ad groups. So that's one way that you can keep segmenting your data to make sure that by segmenting and using negative keywords in different ad groups. So one ad group is one very small segment of your products based on a rule that you created in the Google Merchant Center. Then you can then control that, you can adjust bids, and you can make sure that the search terms that are matching those products are really, really relevant. And anything that isn't, either you negate completely from your campaign using negative keywords, or you can negate just from this ad group to say, well, I do want that traffic, but I don't want it to match products in this ad group because they belong somewhere else. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Do subscribe for more tips. If you've got questions about Google Shopping and how to optimize it, we do offer Google AdWords, Google Shopping coaching. We do that one-on-one online in 1-hour sessions. So we do this lots with a lot of clients and help them make a lot of money using Google Shopping. If not, do ask in the comments and we'll do our best to answer. No problem at all.